to the university. Quit. No, what the hell? Tony, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Vice President. I just want to say we've had an excellent meeting with all of you. We had the great pleasure of being appointed by you in March of 22 and have really gone about the work of building on what I think is an incredible foundation this administration has set for HBCUs. I've said it publicly many times, and I'll say it once more: no other president, no other administration in American history has given so much to HBCUs so quickly, so clearly, and with a clear vision for doing more. And we just want to applaud this administration for that work. Your initial investment of $7 billion just in the Department of Education alone is outstanding. And I want to add that that includes $3.6 billion, during the pandemic, which was critical for us. $1.6 billion in loan forgiveness for infrastructure concerns at HBCUs. 45 public and private HBCUs benefited from that work. Another $1.45 billion in annual appropriations, and $12 million, which might not sound like a lot of money to any of you, but was really important when HBCUs were under terroristic threat not so long ago. So just to give you a sense of that commitment, we have framed our recommendations around President Biden, Vice President Harris's core fundamental tenets in that regard. And therefore, one, let's continue to work on infrastructure, both as it relates to physical infrastructure and technological infrastructure. We already know at HBCUs we're the best return on investment in higher education. We provide a quality education, and we want our living and learning spaces to match that quality education. Two, let's make sure we're spending time continuing to build the research capacity of our institutions. We think we have unique expertise across an array of disciplines that will help the American economy. And we have a number of HBCUs who are in the R2 position, which is a Carnegie classification, that are ready for their R1 status. Three is connected pathways, and the President and the Vice President have already done this, particularly as it relates to using the bully pulpit to spend time with industry supporting this notion of real opportunities for our students from the time they come to our campuses through graduate school. And then finally is HBCU preservation and growth. And we believe that that is critically important because, as many know, particularly my colleagues in this room, still the #1 factor for a low resource student getting into the middle class who is African Americans is their attendance at an HBCU. So I'm very proud to chair this body. I'm very proud of my colleagues and continued work. I'd only add that our report comes with a detailed fact pattern established by the Institute for Black Economic Mobility at the McKinsey Institute that they provided pro bono. So we believe our work is real, sound, and will really help set the trajectory for our institutions. With that, I am proud to introduce and turn it over to my dear friend, President of the United States.
Tony, thanks for the introduction. And Dr. Glover, thank you for co-chairing this effort. Look, and the Board of Advisors, I think we're making, with your help, we're making a lot of progress, a lot more to do. But you know, we just finished a meeting about the critical role HBCUs play and the private discussion we had in here, and what they can do to continue this legacy of excellence and growth. You know, it's not just about, you know, hourly wages. It's about being able to accumulate wealth, being able to focus on more than just what's going to put on the table tonight. And we've done a good job on that, but there's a lot more to do. And HBCUs produce 40% of all black engineers in America, 50% of all black lawyers, 70% of all black doctors and dentists, and 80% of all black judges. And HBCUs are engineers of economic mobility because helping increase the black middle class. I know everybody focus too much on the middle class. When the middle class does well, everybody does well. The poor have a road up and the wealthy still do well, so they got to start paying their taxes. And that's why it's critical to invest in these universities. Folks have the audacity to say, I cut funding for, heard something on one of the, on the internet, that I cut funding for HBCUs. That's the furthest thing from the truth, but then again, a lot on the internet. But I've kept my promise to make historic investments in HBCUs. Tony mentioned $7 billion so far, including research investments, the largest increase in Pell Grants in over a decade, a significant percentage of African Americans going to college receive Pell Grants. Student debt repayment plan is a total lifetime payment per dollar borrowed for black students and families is cut in half, and established the board to do even more. We just had a good discussion around ensuring HBCUs continue to be strong financially and affordable for students. And Tony, you mentioned the 4 things that you suggested in the report: growth, infrastructure, the whole idea of student support, and research. And I was reminiscing that when I was a senator and then a vice president, I realized we had the ability as vice president. The president had the ability to assign government programs that were funded to, if you're going to build a new aircraft carrier, who puts on the deck? Well, you're supposed to pick Americans and American material and American personnel. And I remember going down to an HBCU in northeastern Virginia, and they had the capacity to do anything anyone else did except one thing: they had no laboratories. They had no laboratories. And so the infrastructure of the school is not just housing, not just the classrooms in which you meet in, it's the laboratories to be able to take advantage of the opportunities to compete for the contracts that are being put out by the federal government that generate, and with artificial intelligence around the corner and not around the corner on our back right now, you know, we got to increase that even more. And with regard to the making sure that we engage in making sure you have student support, well, that's why we increased Pell Grants so significantly. And we're going to continue to do that, and that's why we're focusing so much on infrastructure and research. And so the point is that in the meantime, I want to say a word about those in Congress who are willing to shut down the government. I know you all want me to stick exactly to the subject. You don't want to ask me any questions about anything else. I know that. But, excuse me, you're having trouble hearing me. I know anyway. In the meantime, I want to say a word about those in Congress who are willing to shut down the government. Just a few months ago, the Speaker of the House and I agreed to spending levels for the government. We were up right to the very edge, almost reneged on our debt, and that we're going to fund essential priorities and still cut the deficit by $1 trillion over the next decade. Now, a small group of extreme House Republicans, they don't want to live up to that deal, and everyone in America could be faced with paying the price for that. We've changed it. We made a deal. We shook hands. We said this is what we're going to do, and now they're reneging on the deal, which is not much of a surprise these days. And the black community in particular is going to suffer if that occurs. For example, shutdown is going to risk nutrition assistance to nearly 7 million moms and children. It's going to disproportionately affect black families. The Department of Housing and Urban Development will have to stop nearly all its enforcement work fighting housing discrimination. EPA would have to stop its important work bringing environmental justice in frontline and fence line communities, because most of the inspections and hazardous waste sites and chemical facilities would come to a halt. Historic work we're doing to increase the share of federal contract dollars going to small disadvantaged businesses would be disrupted. Funding the government is one of the most basic fundamental responsibilities of the Congress, and if Republicans in the House don't start doing the job, we should stop electing them. Now, there's a lot more to say, but let me turn it over to Kamala.
Well, I want to, as the President has said, welcome and thank each of you for your service. Chair Dr. Allen, Co-Chair Dr. Glover, and the Advisory Board. I am proudly the first Vice President of the United States who was an HBCU graduate, and so
She made her staff wear the Howard jersey.
So the work of this esteemed group of leaders under the guidance of our president is especially meaningful to me for many reasons. I strongly believe, based on experience and knowledge about what our country needs in terms of its strength and growth and development, that our HBCUs are extraordinary centers of academic excellence and must continue to be supported, not only because of the historical role that they have played in building and helping to contribute to America's leadership and global leadership, but also because, as the president has said, as we look forward, we know that our HBCUs are also pipelines for very extraordinary young people to enter the fields of work that we require to cure disease, to create that which we have not imagined, to supply us with the innovative approaches that will allow us to continue to work on the strength, prosperity, and security of our nation. So for all of those reasons, I thank this group for the work you do in advocating for the resources and the growth of our HBCUs. HBCU graduates are in every room where important decisions are made, and they should be. Right now, among the many issues that we are tackling is how will we address artificial intelligence. One of the issues therein that we have discussed a lot at this very table, in fact, is that we want to ensure that machine learning adapts to and includes the experiences of all people. We therefore will all benefit from HBCU graduates being at the table where those decisions are being made. We came out of a pandemic some time ago. What we know is that when we look at health issues and public health